Durell. Leave your phone number there, shoot me a text, and I will respond back to you, and we can get a dialogue going. And that's how you guys can connect with me. I'm really interested in helping independent artists who want to build a framework for success, who want to build an audience, who are willing to do the work, and willing to understand that this takes time and all that jazz.
Fantastic. Durell, thank you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge and your stories. Wish you all the best. Look forward to the next time you can come and join us. Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Durell Peart, and you have just heard some tips on what it takes to make it in the music business today. We have a young lady who is doing just that. She was referred to us by a previous guest, Miss Susie Corey, whom I know you remember, and she talked to me and said, you know, you've got to hear this girl. She is good. And I listened to her. I agreed. She is good. So we're going to have her here on the show right after you listen to this, the title track from her EP called Free. Here is Elyse Saunders.
Too young to go to a bar, but old enough for sneaking out under the stars. Salt in the air, tequila sunrise, lost in the moment, living our best life. Barefoot, glow sticks, 4th of July, skinny dipping in a full moon, shining, shining, can't stop, won't stop. We were so restless, looking back now, might have even reckless.
That's Elyse Saunders, who joins us right now all the way from Canada. She's performed over 400 shows with industry showcases like the Canadian Music Week. She's opened on festival stages ahead of artists like Eric Etheridge in the Washboard Union, Terry Clark, Jason Aldean at Sunfest, and a whole bunch of stuff more than that. We're going to let you hear from her right now. Elyse, come on in and say hello, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, David and John, for having me on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome. We are so happy to have you here. You've got quite a track record already, and you're still building your career. Tell us a little bit. Let us get to know the real Elyse Saunders. Tell us about your background, where you came from, and how you got started in the music business.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Peterborough, Ontario, just a little city east of Toronto, and I like to call it cottage country. And I, since I can remember, have always loved the arts and have loved music, and I started songwriting pretty early, and that happened because I was inspired by my mom, who was an at-home songwriter. She did it as a hobby, and I just thought that was so cool to be able to express yourself that way. So I just started doing it that way and would be singing and dancing at home, and always looked up to these big female voices and thought I would love to do that one day. And I never really knew it was something you could make a career out of, and I had no idea what would be and how you would even get into that. So I guess my first showcase on stage was through singing competition at my high school. I was 16 at the time, and I hadn't really had a lot of experience singing on stage at that point other than at home, and I used to do dance like hip-hop and jazz and tap. So I had a little bit of time on stage, but I definitely went through a bit of an internal phase where I didn't really want to share because I was nervous about what my peers would think.
Sure.
And then my first time was, on the stage singing at my high school, and then I realized from there that I could do it and just started doing more singing competitions, and then had my first big break when I started working with my very first producer. His name's Durell Peart, quite known in the Nashville scene, and he's from Peterborough. So we connected. We went off to Nashville, recorded my very first album, and I was super fortunate to work with some of the best, and then had this opportunity to open in my hometown at a festival of 10,000 people or more. And so at that point, I'd only performed in front of 500 max. So I was obviously pretty scared at that time, but It was pretty thrilling. And it was kind of a moment where I could actually prove to myself that I could do this. And I was addicted after that point. So I spent many years just really developing my craft to get to the point I am now. And that was just on the songwriting side and as a performer, and really finding my sound and developing who I am as a person even. And it all comes together to this package of where I'm at now.
Fantastic. I can identify with your jump from the 500 people to the 10,000. I did a show at Disney World in Orlando in, many years ago, long ago in a galaxy far away. And that was the biggest crowd I had ever stepped up on the front of the Magic Castle. And all the way out as far as you could see towards the main entrance was just solid people. I was scared to death, and all I had to do was introduce the next act. I didn't have to get up there and really perform. So I can relate with what you were going through. But let me ask you this. This is a question of my own. I'm curious. You mentioned your nervousness with regard to how your peers would react. Obviously, your peers have more than likely already accepted and approved of what you're doing because you do it so well. What was your feeling the first time that you realized that your peers accepted and respected you for what you were doing?
It was just, I guess, a shock. It felt like a shock. I always knew I could sing and I loved to sing, but just to see their reaction was a shock, and I guess empowering to put myself out there on a stage by myself and then just really let it come out and see how people would react to it. So it was a really nice surprise and gave me the courage to start doing the next funny that I was nervous at that time, but now it's the best thing. I love being on stage, and it's definitely one of my favorite things now. And I could perform for any number, and it brings me joy, and I believe that that's one of my biggest purposes is to give people shows that hopefully can make a difference to them. You've
definitely opened the door, and I'm glad to hear that you have become so comfortable with it, because now you can concentrate on what you do and doing it to the best of your ability. You don't have to worry about those hesitations and those worried moments quite so much. John Bon Jovial, I know you're eager to get in here. Stop in and say hello.
Well, Elyse, welcome to the show. It is just terrific to have you here. And I got a couple of questions that I guess probably one is a philosophical question. The other one is a technical question. So I'll start with the philosophical end of it first. How do you classify your music? Would you classify it as pop, as contemporary, as country, as what is called new country or stadium country? What are we listening to here?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely country pop. It has that crossover sound to it, and definitely stadium country. When I was writing my material for this album, I was really thinking about my audience when I was doing that. And my path of becoming a performer was actually spending a lot of time playing in nightclubs to university college crowds, to 500 partiers, and sometimes 3 times a week through the night from 9 to 2 a.m. And you really learn what works and how to become an entertainer that's going to make the bar happy, and it sells and makes the audience happy, and to make them feel like that they're partying with you on stage and that you're creating these moments that are memorable and fun for them. And so I write and record my music with that in mind, that I want it to be able to travel well on a stadium type stage.
Well, and the reason why I ask is that, both David and I have been in radio for a long, long time, when that was the only form of entertainment for most people, was to listen to the radio in their car or at home on their stereo, because, the internet wasn't around, and there were no such thing as plugging a thumb drive into your, stereo in the car. And so, I jocked country for years. And when I say country, I mean Waylon Jennings, George Jones, Tammy Wynette, Ferlin Husky, this kind of thing. And my daughter, who is 32, almost 33, was telling me about stadium. Yes, is telling me about this phenomenon called stadium country. And so I looked it up. And then this is why I asked you the question, because while I was up in Michigan just recently, we were listening to, wherever we'd go, my sister-in-law was driving, and she would have command of the radio, and we were listening to the local country station, which just drove me absolutely out of my mind, because there was just this obnoxious sameness to it. And I think that your music would fit in very well, and I don't mean that in a bad way. And your music would rise above the best, because while musically there may be some similarity, your voice is so much stronger than any of these people, man or woman, that I heard on this radio station out of Battle Creek, Michigan, which is not a small market. And so that's why I had to ask you what you feel the classification of the music is, because if it's stadium country, or what some people call new country, I think you've got a great chance of really rising above all the the other wannabes that are on there. Now, the other question that I had was more on the technical side of things. I love the harmonies that you do. Now, did you have people in the studio with you, or did you lay down all these harmonies yourself?
So a mixture of both. I do have quite a bit of experience in the studio, so I feel like that's definitely helped a lot towards this current EP. I've always loved harmonies, and I have a natural ear for harmonies. So I could go into the studio and I'll lay down the harmonies that I hear. But my producers, especially Dan Swinimer, he's like OCD when it comes to technical stuff, I would say. So he really knows how to pick out all of the best harmonies. Yeah. And so that was really fun, because it took me outside of what I normally would do with harmonies and took it to a whole other level. And I actually had so much fun doing it. So on all of the songs, all of the female harmonies are me, except for on Free, we do have another female harmonist on it. But once Dan discovered I could do harmonies, he's like, yeah, let's just do that. So yeah, he's been a big help, and Paul Chateau as well, just pulling out some really unique melodies that maybe I wouldn't have heard. But yeah, it can make a big difference, and just the way you phrase them, and also like what kind of tone and like how breathy they are, it can all make a difference for how a song comes across.
Okay, now I know I said 2 questions, but I thought of a third, and I'm going to make it real quick. For personal listening pleasure, on your part, analog or digital?